this video, I'm going to talk about negative indices. And the first half of this video, you should be fine with coming to this from scratch. But the last half of the video, I'm going to make negative indices with fractional indices. So if you haven't already watched my video on unit fractional indices and fractional indices, you might want to have a look at that before we start. Okay, so what I've got here is a number line, and the number line here again works by multiplication. So I times by 2 as I jump along. Okay, so it's different from normal number lines when I add. So the question is, I know how to jump this way along the number line. I'd multiply by 2. What do I need to do if I want to go in the other direction, if I want to go this way instead? Hopefully you can see by looking at these numbers here that in order to go this way, I need to divide by 2 instead. And by doing that, I can start going into these values here. So if you remember from before, we said starting from 1, the number of jumps you take tells you the power that you've got. So 1 jump up from 1 is 2 to the 1. 3 jumps up from 1 is 2 to the 3. So if I can start jumping backwards, I'm going to be able to get out the negative powers of 2. Okay, so I'm going to start by working out what they are by dividing by 2 to go down. So 1 divided by 2 is a half, or 0.5. A half divided by 2, well, that's half of a half, or half times a half, which is 1/4. And then I need to divide that by 2. Half of a quarter is an eighth. And half of an eighth is a 16th. You will probably notice as we go through this that the numbers that were here are starting to appear again underneath here. So if you think about what the next number would be along here, which would be 32, the next number going down on the other side would be 1 over 32. Okay, so we're now going to use this number line to help us do some negative powers of 2. So 2 to the minus 1 is 1 jump down from 0, so it's a half. 2 squared is 2 jumps up from 1, so that's 4. But 2 to the minus 2 is 2 jumps down, so that gets us down to 1 over 4. 2 cubed is 8. 2 to the minus 3 is 1 over 8. 2 to the 4 is 16. And 2 to the minus 4 is 1 over 16. So in all of these cases, you'll notice that the negative power is very similar to the positive power. It's just that that number is the denominator with a 1 over. Okay, so when you do power of minus 1, you can imagine flipping the fraction over, making it 1 over. Okay, here's one for you to have a little go at. This time I've gone for a powers of 3 number line. So see if you can fill in the values on the number line first of all. And once you've filled the values in, see if you can use your number line to help you work out these 4 questions here. Okay, I'm just going to move this back before we start doing these questions. So, for the powers of 3 number line, just like before, we're going to be dividing to go backwards. So if we want to go up the number line, I times by 3. If I want to go down the number line, I divide by 3. So first of all, I have to do 1 divided by 3, which I can write as 1/3. Then I have to do 1/3 divided by 3, or 1/3 times a third, which is 1 over 9. Starting to see these numbers coming out here. So we have 1 over 27 and 1 over 81. Okay, so very similar to before. These numbers are appearing, but on the underneath side of a fraction. So 3 to the minus 1 is what I get if I go 1 jump down from 1, so 1/3. 3 to the minus 2 is 2 jumps down, so it's 1/9. 3 to the minus 3 is 3 jumps down, so 1 over 27. And 3 to the minus 4 is 1 over 81. It's always just 1 over 3 to the normal power. So 3 to the 4 is 81, so 3 to the minus 4 is 1 over 81. Okay, so now I've done a few of those. I'm going to give you guys time to get some practice, but I'm just going to show you the quick method that you can do this for, first of all, which you might want to use in an exam instead. Okay, so here are 3 questions doing some negative powers. I'm going to do this without going to the number line. Okay, I'm just going to think about the rule. So 4 to the minus 2 is going to be 1 over 4 squared. 4 squared is 16, so 1 over 16. 5 to the minus 3 is going to be 1 over 5 cubed, or 1 over 125. And 7 to the minus 2 is going to be 1 over 7 squared, or 1 over 49. So you're just going to pop the fraction in, and then you're going to think about the power as you normally would. Okay, here are some questions for you to practice that. Okay, here you go. Have a go at those and pause the video when you think you're done. Okay, so 4 to the minus 3, 1 over 4 cubed, which is 1 over 64. 1 over 10 to the 4 is 1 over 10,000. 1 over 8 to the 1, well, 8 to the 1 is just 8, so it's just 1/8. 1 over 6 cubed, which is 1 over 216. It's fine if that takes you a minute or two to work out. Okay, 5 to the minus 4, 1 over 5 to the 4, or 1 over 625. Again, you might have to take a minute or two to work that out if you're not so familiar with these. 9 to the minus 2 is 1 over 9 squared, which is 1 over 81. Okay, right, let's make things a little bit more complicated again. This time, let's start having some fractions to powers instead. So, as I said with these ones, you can kind of imagine it as being flipped over. I'll show you with one of these. Okay, you can think of 4 as 4 over 1. So when we flip it over, or find the reciprocal, we go to the negative power. So flip the fraction over to find the negative power. So if I wanted to do 1/3 to the minus 1, I can just flip it over to get 3 over 1, or 3. Okay? For this one, I've got the minus, which means I'm going to flip it, but I've also got the 2, which means I'm squaring it. So first of all, I tend to like to deal with the minus bit. So the minus bit tells me to flip it over, so I'm going to write that as 5 over 2, and then the 2 bits telling me I still need to square it all. So I tend to go from this stage to this stage, flip it over and get rid of the minus, and then work from there onwards. So I need to square, so times the top and times the bottom by themselves, so 25 over 4. Okay. Next one, so I've got the minus, I'm going to flip it, so I get 4 over 3. 3 tells me to cube it. 4 cubed is 64. 3 cubed is 27. Okay, so the minus bit's telling us to flip it, and then the number is just telling us to do the power. Okay, here are a few of those to just get some practice. Here we go then. So we've got 4 over 1 squared, which is 16 over 1, or 16. Here we've got 5 over 1 cubed, which is 125 over 1, or 125. You don't have to write the over 1 bit if you're confident with those. Next up, we're going to flip it over, 3 over 2 cubed, 27 over 8. And finally, flip it over first, 4/5 squared, which is 16 over 25. Okay, so flip it with the minus and then deal with the power afterwards. Now let's do some more complicated ones, which are fractions to negative fractional powers. So this is as hard as it's going to get realistically. And it's at this point that you will want to have already looked at my video on fractional powers before you start this. So for all of these, the first step I'm going to do is get rid of the minus by flipping them over. So I'm going to change this to 25 over 9 to the power of 1/2. Power of 1/2 means square root. So I'm going to square root the 25, and I'm going to square root the 9. And I end up with 5 over 3. Okay. Next one. Again, feel free to pause this if you think you can do this ahead of me. So minus means I'm going to flip it. Then I've got 4/3. The over 3 tells me to cube root, and the 4 tells me to do power of 4. So let's cube root first of all. I'm going to get 3 over 2 that I'm going to have to do to the power of 4. So then I'm going to get 3 to the 4, which is 81, over 2 to the 4, which is 16. Okay. Last one. I think I'm going to have to rub this out in order to give myself some room for it. Okay, so first of all, minus bit means I need to flip it over. So I'm going to write 4 over 25 to the 3 over 2. The over 2 tells me to square root. The 3 tells me to cube. So I'm square rooting first of all. So that's 2 over 5 that I have to cube. Then I'm going to cube both bits to get 8 over 125. So that is my answer to this one here. Okay, so if you want a bit more practice of this, here are 3 more that I'll go through in just a minute. Okay, so again, I'm going to deal with the minus first. So I'm going to do 625 over 81 to the 3/4. Okay, that's going to get me 125 over 27. Next one, 36 over 25 to the 3 over 2, square root then cube. I'm going to get 216 over 125. Next one, I'm going to deal with the minus first of all. Okay, cube root and then power of 4, so that's going to get me 81 over 625. Okay, it is worth, if you get these questions in an exam, breaking it down into stages, because you'll get marks as you go along the way, and try and make sure as you go through you keep the power bit written down, because if you just write that as equal to that fraction equal to that without the power in, technically what you're writing is incorrect. Okay.